Eric, as far as we know, how big are the protests right now? Where are they happening?
You know, this is all over the world, designed to really draw attention to Uber drivers right, ahead of the pricing and then listing on Friday. So this is, a global effort. I think there are some questions about the effect because people can still, get cars, but certainly the presence has been made known here.
So anecdotally, it sounds like it hasn't necessarily crippled the app. Is that correct?
Right. I think it's super hard to do. Sort of by its very nature, Uber can be responsive to a strike because, the prices the drivers might get paid go up if there aren't enough of them on the marketplace. So I don't know. It's hard to sort of see into that dynamic, and obviously it's different in different places. But yeah, as far as we can tell, the app is perfectly operational at the moment.
Now, Micah, the reality is there are more gig economy companies, more workers in demand. So how do you think a strike like this will affect Uber?
I think a strike like this is more of a PR exercise, frankly. I don't believe that this will have a big impact. Also, anecdotally, my wife was able to use Uber this morning to get to the airport at a roughly normal price. So I think the more interesting question than the impact of a one-day strike is to see whether or not driver retention for companies like this and gig economy worker retention over the course of the next couple of years will suffer as we see these companies maturing, with workers starting to understand which pay the best wages, have the best work, have the best lifestyle to offer.
A couple of quotes here from drivers. Syed Ali, a driver for Uber, saying, "I'm striking because Uber has broken their promises to drivers time and again. At first it was good money, but then Uber cut our rates and tried to tell us we'd be earning more, even though they paid us less." Kevin Ragu, a driver for Lyft, saying, "I'm making so little money, even with all the hours I work, the bills add up. If something happens to my vehicle or even the wear and tear to my car can push me into more debt. Our expenses keep going up. Meantime, these companies are getting rich. We need them to reduce commission and give drivers a fair share of the revenue they take from passengers." Eric, what is Uber saying about this today?
I think they're trying to take a sympathetic ear to drivers. They're not, shouting down these protesters. I think they understand that it's always sort of a challenged relationship. In the S1, Uber talked about how, bringing down driver subsidies or excess incentives, as Uber talks about them, could, further irritate drivers. And I think that's going to be a challenge because obviously Uber is a company that lost $3 billion in operating losses last year, $10 billion over the last 3 years, and yet drivers, which are a main source of their costs, clearly from these protests feel underpaid. So solving those two problems, one, drivers who feel like they don't make enough, and on the other hand, trying to make money is going to be an huge challenge for Uber.
So, Micah, talk to us about the ripple effects this will and continue to have on the gig economy, the broader gig economy. Can these drivers make more if they're a delivery person for Postmates or doing tasks for TaskRabbit?
Sure. I think it may be a little bit too early to tell long term, but what should happen in these companies over time is, as they're able to build a stable business model that incorporates the right level of labor, and they get a model in place that will retain drivers or workers, whatever those workers do in the particular company, wages, I expect, will fluctuate. So some of these companies may find that they have to raise wages in order to keep their workers on over the course of the time period that they need them to be working to be profitable. And if that happens, I expect that some companies that have more margin to spend on labor will find their labor costs going up over time. Other companies may have less margin, and in that case, those companies will either have to change their model, or I think that we will see over time some of these gig economy companies get driven out of business as we see whether or not consumers are willing to pay the higher prices that may be imposed by higher labor costs.
Do you think Uber or Lyft will get driven out of business given the demand for their services?
Probably not. They have huge stores of capital at their disposal. Obviously, Lyft has fresh capital, Uber's about to get fresh capital, and they have plenty of momentum to try and figure out the way to retain drivers. This is also their core business, and so they are in a situation where they'll have to figure that out. I think there are many other companies out there that either have gig economy workers as part of the core but don't have the same advantages that may struggle, or companies that have been either developed as a strategic add-on to a company that has a profitable core business, a grocery company or something like this, and those companies will adjust in different ways from Uber and Lyft.
Meantime, Eric, you've got international leaders speaking out of this. Jeremy Corbyn, head of the Labour Party in the UK, saying Uber cannot be allowed to get away with huge payouts for their CEOs while refusing to pay drivers a decent wage and respect their rights at work. Stand with these workers on strike today across the UK and the world, asking you not to use Uber between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. today. Hashtag Uber shutdown. Well, Uber has only one CEO. But, from the point of view of drivers, how much does that CEO make? And when you're looking at many of these employees who are about to get rich on an IPO, is it easier to understand their position?
Right. Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi received $45 million last year, according to the S1. So is obviously getting very well compensated for his job. And it's a striking contrast to how much a driver is getting paid. And obviously Uber has a political problem, especially, on the left. I think, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweeted about this. Bernie Sanders has been talking about it. So I definitely think, throughout this Democratic primary, I wouldn't be surprised if candidates keep talking about Uber. Obviously this is a great moment to talk about it because Uber is about to go public. Sort of a vulnerable moment for the company, not the press that it wants right now. But there's going to be this liberal conversation in the Democratic primary, and I think that is going to be a moment to talk about labor in America. And obviously, Uber is sort of central to that story. So I don't think this is going away once Uber becomes public. And then the question is just whether that conversation can actually turn into some sort of federal legislation that would actually change Uber's business, or if it's just talk. And I think that's going to be the question going forward.